Before we start diving deep into our components, it's a good idea to actually understand the difference between what we call a container and a presentational component. Now, you may have heard of these as stateful or stateless components, or smart or dumb components, so they all kind of relate to the same thing. And in this video, we're going to look through what they essentially mean, because it's a good idea in Angular to treat our components as containers and presentational components. So what does this mean? Let's assume this particular DOM tree here. Now, these are just a list of components, and each component may have a subcomponent. So we've got 5 components in total here. Now, let's assume that we want to add a service to this component to actually give it some real data from perhaps an API, makes this component a smart component. Now, the smart component, which is the container component, essentially contains all of these other components that do not know about this data. However, the smart component can then pass the data down to these child components. So this is essentially the difference between a smart and a dumb component, or a container and a presentational component. So typically a container component can communicate with the services, and it also renders child components. So these are the main 2 things to think about when you're actually architecting an Angular application. Similarly, with a dumb or a presentational component, these accept data via an input, and they emit data changes via an event output. So we're about to learn how to do this, because this ties heavily in with the best practices with component architecture in Angular.